Happy Christmas, guys. Okay, so today, um, we my parents are divorced, and my dad's side of the family did a sort of Christmas Day um, with their side of the family for me and my sister to sort of take part in, as we were with my mum this Christmas. And my granddad and my grandmother on that side of the family are both Catholic. They are actually divorced. My granddad is a bit of an arsehole, generally speaking, but my grandmother is actually a very nice person, and I would have definitely have labelled her as a moderate. I mean, I still would, but we did have a sort of interesting conversation at the table today, and so this video is not going to be about so much the discussion that we had, because it didn't last for very long, but it's more about my thought process after I started thinking about this conversation that we had. So we were talking about, what books we like to read, and I just mentioned Richard Dawkins' name as just in passing, as somebody who I like to read. And immediately the cross came out, not literally, but metaphorically. The cross came out, and she was like, "Oh my God, he's a heretic." And I was kind of shocked by this. I sort of dodged the issue and said, "Well, he writes really good science." And then her response was something like, "Well, yes, okay, if he just sticks to the science, yes, but he's so anti-God, anti-blah, blah, blah." And I kind of just didn't pursue that any further. But as I was in the car home, I started thinking about, what the actual definition of the word heretic is, because colloquially it has quite strong connotations, but I sort of wanted to know the actual definition, so I wikied it. And a heretic, according to Wikipedia, is somebody who holds beliefs that are strongly at variance with the currently established beliefs or customs. Now, this in itself doesn't sound that particularly bad, because if you think about the suffragette movement, I mean, they held beliefs that were very strongly at variance with the currently established beliefs. If they didn't express those ideas, and if they didn't have those ideas, women like my grandmother and millions of women after her would not have the right to vote and would not be seen as equal to men. And so what this really got me thinking is, where is the justification from her, from my grandmother, or indeed from the Catholic Church, seeing she's Catholic, for what seems to be a condemnation of somebody for simply disagreeing with them? Because that's really what it boils down to, is if you have different ideas from the currently established beliefs or customs, then you should be condemned. Now, why do I use the word condemn? Well, as I said, in colloquial speech, it has the word heretic has quite strong connotations, quite negative connotations, and it does sort of have the feeling like you are being severely looked down upon, certainly. So I'm using the word condemn there in that sense. So what is the justification for condemning somebody for simply disagreeing with them? Well, in the church, in the church's case, the only thing I can think of that it could possibly boil down to is that this rather non-reason, because God says so, or God is immune from criticism, and well, I mean, what can you possibly say to that? But anyway, so in about the last 5 minutes, this thinking has completely changed my outlook on so-called moderates. I did actually have a conversation with my mum, which also led to this change on outlook. And I would have classified my grandmother as a moderate, as I said, but it made me realise that under all of this pleasant, sweet, moderate nectar, there is a rather primitive and ridiculous, quite frankly, mindset that, as far as I can see, it ties all moderates painfully together with extremists. This idea that God says so is actually a good answer. That is a little bit disconcerting, and I actually do think actually less of my grandmother now than I did. It's a weird thing, and I got quite angry, really, to think that my grandmother actually thinks this is a good answer, because that's the only answer I could think of. If you have any ideas as to what other justification there could be for condemning somebody simply for believing differently to the church, then by all means comment in the comment section. So I'll just go through the conversation I had with my mother, because it really came to a realisation for something that I've been struggling with for a few years now. So what my mother said when I told her about this was, well, you know what the Catholic Church is like. To which I replied, well, I just wouldn't think that if you asked her, should somebody be condemned for simply making a moral judgment on something and doubting its existence, I just don't think she'd say yes to that question. My mother replied, well, she wouldn't. Well, to which I said, okay, but then she's contradicting herself, isn't she? My mum then said, we've had this conversation numerous times, and I keep telling you that you just won't understand. It's just a different mindset. I then said, but I really want to understand, and I do, by the way, I really do. I really want to understand. But this is the crunch, right? Thank you, Mum, even though she won't agree with me. But thank you, Mum, for pointing this out. You just won't understand because it's not logical. To which I said, it's not logical. That phrase, "it's not logical," is the same thing as saying that it doesn't make sense. And all this time, all these years, I've thought there's something wrong with me. There's a different angle that I'm not getting. I'm not looking at it in the right way. There's a piece of information that these people know that I just don't get. And when it boils down to it, actually, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. Nothing. It's the fact that the fault is in the thought process. The fault is that it just doesn't make sense. And I kind of was under the illusion that religious moderates sort of had some sort of reason to believe in God, even though I don't. I'm just beside myself with not only the revelation that I had about my grandmother, but also this reassurance that there is actually nothing wrong with my thought process. I do kind of feel though that I need to retain some of that feeling that there is something wrong, because it's always good to doubt your own thoughts. Otherwise, you end up being like the Catholic Church. So if you have any comments about this video, post them below. And yeah, have a good rest of the Christmas season. Hope you have a good New Year. I probably won't make another video between now and then, because I never make videos. So, it's just one-off things. So, anyway, bye.